I have a close relationship with disaster relief, coming from a family who has worked for FEMA most of my life. I have seen the policies and procedures the government takes to help those in need after a disaster, and I am familiar with what kind of budget they are working with under the circumstances. I was personally involved in the tornado that struck Windsor, Colorado in 2008 and watched as the community struggled to put itself back together, patiently waiting for the help of FEMA. The aftermath was devastating, but my family and I were the lucky few who had been left with hardly a scratch. However, others weren't as lucky as us, and help doesn't always arrive exactly when we need it to. Since then, I've grown curious to the organizations that are solely based on volunteer work that give back to the communities affected. I grew up in a church where I always volunteered to be part of the food drives that fed the homeless. I've seen the ins and outs of many different variations of volunteer work, but I've never been on the disaster relief side. Natural disasters are devastating. Relief shouldn't have to be. Reach out to the communities struggling with the aftermath of destruction. Volunteer. First, I would like you to imagine a world without volunteers. No one to help clean up local parks, no one manning the crosswalk to help your children across a busy intersection, no holiday toy drives for families who can't afford to buy presents, no care packages to victims involved in natural disasters, no food or water to be donated to communities who have no other option than to go without, no one to help rebuild structures. The list goes on. The amount of help we encounter daily that we fail to acknowledge is volunteer work. Now imagine being involved in the recent hurricanes that left Puerto Rico in complete and utter destruction. Everything you owned, worked hard for, and loved is gone, and now you have to pick up the pieces to start completely over. Who would you turn to? What necessities would you prioritize? How would you be able to afford the rebuilding process? When would support from the government arrive? Don't overlook the people who want to help. According to dictionary.com, a volunteer is defined as a person who freely offers to take part in enterprise or undertake a task. Most volunteers help because they want to. It's a choice they make every day to better the world we live in and reach out to those in search of hope. There are several organizations that have always stood out to me for volunteer work, including the Salvation Army, which was founded in 1865, the American Red Cross, which was founded in 1881, and in 1976, Habitat for Humanity was founded with the intentions of giving enormous contributions to disaster relief victims. According to the Salvation Army's website, the Salvation Army helps 25 million Americans in need, 128 countries around the world, which adds up to $15 billion in insured damages a year. The Salvation Army is made up of volunteers that specialize and are trained in emergency preparedness, immediate emergency response, long-term disaster recovery, and spiritual and emotional care. Each of these categories are crucial elements for disaster relief victims, made up solely by individuals who want to help those in need. This organization helps victims tremendously and is done all without payment. The American Red Cross states, "We go wherever we are needed so people can have clean water, safe shelter, and hot meals when we need them the most." The American Red Cross relies on 330,000 volunteers. Collectively, the American Red Cross responds to 180 calls a day, breaking that down to a call every 8 minutes, and 64,000 calls a year. Without volunteers, people finding themselves involved in a disaster would be facing a lot more daily struggles to get back on their feet. I think some people feel lost after disaster strikes, which is completely natural, but exploring all of your resources could immensely impact your life. Habitat for Humanity is another organization that people sometimes overlook. Did you know that Habitat for Humanity is not just a resale company where you can buy reduced price items for your house? It is an organization that directs people to feasible structures that can help protect victims during a disaster, and also finds housing solutions for those in need. Habitat's main focuses are to provide shelter, education, and training to those affected by natural disasters. They follow disaster relief protocol, procedures, and policies, take preventative measures to support disaster-prone areas, and offer year-round preparation for unexpected disasters. The people involved in the volunteer process may not be rewarded with money, but we do know that their hearts are full. I would like you guys to take a minute and watch this video, as it explains the procedures the American Red Cross takes after a natural disaster. Keep in mind, it doesn't have to be a national disaster. All, big and small, are important to these trained volunteers.
When natural disasters like Hurricane Katrina or Sandy happen, Red Cross emergency response vehicles and volunteers make the news. But rarely shown is the fact that on average, Red Cross workers help a family affected by a home fire or other disaster 180 times a day. The Red Cross is there for nearly 64,000 disasters per year throughout the U.S., helping people like Gene Welsh of Sioux Falls, South Dakota. A smoke alarm installed by the Red Cross saved Gene's life, going off just in time for him to escape only moments before flames engulfed his house. The Red Cross helps people like Gene and communities all across the U.S., maybe even people you know. Generous donors make this work possible. Donor gifts enable the American Red Cross to sustain a strong nationwide infrastructure comprised of local offices, robust training, integrated IT and communication systems, a fleet of response vehicles, warehouses stocked with shelter and relief supplies, and partners to help mobilize to support one family or 100,000 families. An average of 91 cents of every donor dollar goes to support Red Cross humanitarian services and programs. The Red Cross also relies on a network of 330,000 volunteers in communities throughout the country who respond night and day, answering the call for help. So when you hear stories about people like Gene Welsh, you may realize that the Red Cross is your Red Cross too, a local charity staffed and supported by your neighbors, making a difference every day in your own community. You can make a difference in your community too. To join the mission to help people affected by disasters, big and small, visit redcross.org/give.
I recently read an article by Arden Brummel entitled "The Value of Volunteering." Arden states, "Volunteering is about giving, contributing, and helping other individuals and the community at large." This makes me think about the volunteer work that I have had the opportunity to participate in. It gives you a sense of purpose and comes from within. The tools you learn along the way are unimaginable. Volunteering doesn't just help the community, it helps yourself grow as well. Additionally, I came across an article in Balance Magazine that listed 15 benefits of volunteering that you may not always think about right away. This article made a lot of great points about the advantages of volunteer work. The article states these benefits as listed. Volunteering builds the community, ends loneliness, increases socialization, builds bonds while creating friendships, increases volunteers' mental health and happiness, develops emotional stability, improves self-esteem, helps those affected by mental illness, improves overall health, promotes longevity, reduces risk of Alzheimer's, can lead to graceful aging, burns calories, creates more career opportunities, provides better job prospects, develops corporate communities, and ultimately adds fun to all the years you volunteer. The benefits are endless as a volunteer. Volunteering has always been near to my heart. I was raised in a very caring home, and I was taught to help people when they were suffering, regardless of the funds that were currently in my pocket. Everyone has it worse than someone, and in this day and age, it's crucial to show random acts of kindness. Just this past Thursday, on Thanksgiving, I participated in feeding the homeless at the church I attend. The appreciation in each one of their faces was so rewarding. Food can be scarce and hard to come by, and it breaks my heart to see people suffer. Lending a helping hand to those in need is so important. I can't stress that enough. Ultimately, volunteering can also lead to employable skills that will broaden job opportunities in the future. I recently interviewed my dad, who is currently deployed through FEMA in Puerto Rico after the recent hurricanes hit. He was first sent there when there was still no power and was actually living out of his car because there weren't really any other options. He went to one of the few buildings in the area that had power that FEMA had set up as home base to get started on the rebuilding. But what stuck out to him the most were how people were coming together to help one another. He said the volunteers were coming from all over the country to help people suffering. Food and water were being replenished. Cleanup committees came from all over. Shelters had been set up, all by volunteers. Hearing this stuff really makes my soul smile. How truly amazing these individuals really are. In conclusion, I challenge you to take some time to give back to the community. Some people are not as fortunate as most, and it's important to give what you can. So let's get up, get out, get going, and give back. We are the future of this world. Let us be the standard.